Good morning, I'm Ben Kritz and this is TMT Newsroom. I'm joined today by Janine McGill, our trade reporter for the Manila Times, and we are also joined this morning by Undersecretary Jean Pacheco of the Department of Trade and Industry, who is here to talk about the Internet Transactions Act of 2023.
Thank you for that very warm introduction about being dynamic and all, so thank you for that. So the Internet Transactions Act is a new law. It's been signed by the President last year, December. And it's a very relevant law because all of us here, I mean, you know, if you buy in the Internet, I'm sure you buy online, right? Mm-hmm. Then this is the law for you. You need to know this law. It's a law that provides protection for both consumers and merchants on those engaged in internet transactions. Basically that's it. If you are engaged in the buying and selling online, then you need to know the rules.
Okay. Well, let's talk about some of those rules. First of all, from a business perspective. What does the ITA, let's just call it the ITA, so we're not going to say all those words every time. What does the ITA do exactly in terms of defining online business and regulating what goes on from the business side?
Yeah. This is actually my favorite part when we actually describe e-commerce or the scope of the law, because the normal person would look at e-commerce and then they would say it's about Lazada or Shopee. Mm-hmm. That's e-commerce, right? But one thing that I learned in the beginning, that when you say online businesses or internet transactions, really there are different business models. So this particular law identifies those business models. So for example, the difference between brick and mortar and digital, mm-hmm, or e-commerce is it operates through a platform, right? You link the buyer and the seller through a digital platform. So digital platforms are defined in the law, but most especially this law is more or less specific on e-marketplaces, mm-hmm, online merchants, and e-retailers. So what are these? Again, digital platforms, they link buyers and sellers. So e-marketplaces are the likes of, Lazada, Shopee, Facebook, TikTok, eBay, Amazon. So those are e-marketplaces where, mm-hmm, as a buyer, you can buy from those platforms. Now, you are called an e-retailer if you have your own website and you go directly. You have a brick and mortar. You are SNR. You are SM, right? You have a retail store, and then you go directly to the consumer via your own website. Then you are an e-retailer. And then there's the online merchant. The online merchant is the one that we buy from inside the platform. So you go to your favorite marketplace. What do you buy? You buy a piece of clothing. You go to a certain store that's selling inside the marketplace. So that's what we call an online merchant. So this law provides the rules and the regulatory framework on these kinds of business models. They are given, it's very clear in the law what the obligations are, mm-hmm, and what the penalties are. And of course, it provides the obligations. I mean, when you buy or you sell online, there are some conduct of behavior that we hope that we would strengthen through this particular law.
Okay, well, speaking in terms of how it's defined, there's a couple of examples I just thought of that might fall through the cracks. For instance, somebody that might be considered an online retailer but does not have a physical presence, whose business is purely online. You order through their website. I'll give you an example of that. There are, because I like my Western Hemisphere diet, there are a number of food specialty shops that exist purely online. They do not have a location. So, is there a niche that defines those? And the other one that I thought of, and maybe there's a simple answer to this question, but a platform like Locanto, for instance, where people can just post things, which is similar to like Facebook Marketplace, just private individuals posting things for sale. How does that, how does that fit into it?
So the law is quite clear. If you sell online, you sell online, then that is part of the law. So in this particular case, it doesn't matter whether you don't have a brick and mortar or you have a brick and mortar.
Okay.
If you sell online, that's a business, and that is covered under the law. You need to comply with the requirements under the law.
So what are some examples? I know I've read through the documentation, and it is quite extensive. So it would take a lot of time to explain everything, and we'd probably put everybody to sleep. But can you give us some simple examples of the key points, the key regulations that people doing business online need to follow?
And this is probably the time where I'd sort of make a pitch to all of those sellers out there. Now that the law is in place, we'd like to make this call for all of you here, all of you watching who are selling online. You need to follow certain rules. And number one, the thing, how this all started is that the Department of Trade, we get a lot of complaints, no? We got a lot of complaints about buying online, and then when we track them down, they're no longer there. It's easy for them to just basically disappear or change their names. Under this law, that will definitely be prevented, because now one of the things that's important in the law is that the merchant should provide relevant information. So we need to make sure that the platform, when the merchant is in that platform, they have to make sure that, of course, the name of the merchant is there, the contact person, the number, the address of the person, and then you just cannot just sell everything online. They have to remember that under the law, it's very strict, that only those that you can sell, but if it's a regulated product, that means to say you need a permit for that. And if it's a prohibited product, definitely you can't sell it. Now, there are many regulated products. That means to say you can sell it only when you've been issued a permit. My favorite example is chainsaw. Chainsaw, you cannot just buy chainsaw nor sell chainsaw online. So if there's any one of you that you see, you report it to the Department of Trade.
I have no need for a chainsaw, but I would not have guessed something like that. Why is that? Why is that particular example regulated? I mean, of course, things like cosmetics and food supplements and things like that, which are regulated by the FDA. Of course, that makes sense. But why would it be something like a chainsaw? And
tools. It's a tool.
Why would that?
So
be
people use
regulated?
it for tools. And we can buy anything online, But in this particular case, as we said, it's a safety and health. It's a standard, and there's a law by the Forestry Management Bureau that tool cannot just be authorized to be sold by anyone except if you're authorized to do so. Of course, I have another example, because during the pandemic, I became a plantita. I wasn't into plants.
So did I.
Yes, I would. You would.
We got bored.
Did you notice that I would buy all of this? What do you call this? Where you put the vases, and of course, some sell fertilizers. You can't buy fertilizers if you're not allowed to sell those fertilizers. There are merchants out there who buy in bulk, and then they put it in small soup pots, and then they sell it. That's not allowed if you're not accredited. So those are the things, and there are a lot. We actually have a list of those.
I can think of some examples too, because my daughter and I, we have a aquarium hobby, and there are a lot of products associated with keeping fish in aquariums that fall under that category too. So that makes sense. But that raises another interesting question. In just those couple examples, you've mentioned things that are regulated by FDA, or by the Department of Agriculture, or by
the National Telecommunications Commission.
Right. So how many different agencies are involved in actually making this work? Because there would have to be a lot of cross-checking.
That's correct.
Done and things like that. And what's the framework for keeping all of that organized?
Right. So I think we've had about my last count it's about 15 departments, I think. But there are about, of course, in the department you have agencies under those departments, right? So like the Fertilizer and Pesticide Authority is under the Department of Agriculture. The FDA is under the Department of Health. So there's like a lot, about 15 departments, if I'm not mistaken. Then of course there's the Philippine National Police. There's also involved here the National Privacy Commission. So really the entire ecosystem of e-commerce. And so what's the framework? Exactly because of the law. The law provides the power to the Department of Trade and Industry to sort of to have regulatory jurisdiction over digital platforms. But these are all ancillary to those that have certain mandates. So because of we always hear about a whole of government approach. This is what it is about. It's a whole of government approach, but for a better user experience for the consumer, you don't have to go to, if it's an online complaint, you don't have to go to each and every agency. You just go to the e-commerce bureau, you go to the Department of Trade and Industry, we'll take care of you. We will be the one to sort of navigate your complaint to the proper agency of government. And the beauty of this law is that, because as you very well know, it used to be that each agency of government would really have the mandate, right? So if you have a problem with food or pharmaceuticals, of course you go to the FDA. If you have a problem with maybe beer of plant industry or so different agencies of government, then you go to that, and that particular agency of government responds to it or resolves your complaint. But now you go to the Department of Trade and Industry. Then the Department of Trade and Industry, through the e-commerce bureau, we give it to the proper agency concerned. But here's what the law is saying. We need to track them down. We need to make sure that we monitor them. So even if I as the e-commerce bureau receives your complaint about chainsaw, or maybe fake, because that's another one too. That's a violation on our intellectual property. So you complained to me about, you thought that it was authentic, but it turns out that it isn't, right? So you make a complaint, and then we pass it on to the intellectual property office. Then the brand owners really determine as such, and then that's the role. We need to make sure, the DTI needs to make sure that your complaint has been acted upon. So that's one of the good things about this particular law.
Is that process covered under, like for instance, the Anti-Red Tape Act, where there's time standards for how matters should be dealt with?
Yeah.
Like, let's say I buy some fake products from one of my fish tanks, and I complain to you. How long can I expect it to take before I hear a response about what the resolution was?
I must admit that the law has just been passed recently, and the guidelines also just approved recently. So there are many, many more guidelines. Like this particular specific issue that you're referring to, this would need, again, another set of guidelines because it will provide certain standards. So we know that under the EODB Act, if it's a simple transactions, it's 3 days. If it's complex, it's 7 days. And if it is highly technical, it's about, I think, 20 days,
20
right?
days.
So we have to make sure that we use those standards. But again, as you can see, there are different laws, rules, or regulation per particular commodity. So this is something because, as you said, there are many agencies of government. But I think we all abide by that rule that we need some standards, and I can tell you that under the Internet Transactions Act, that's what we need to do. We need to make sure that it won't take you a year to get your complaint.
Let me pick maybe a different, simpler example. I buy something, it's defective, so I return it to the seller, and a week has passed, 2 weeks have passed, and I do not have a credit back on my credit card. So I complain, hey, I think this is taking an excessive amount of time for a refund. How long would something like that take?
Okay, so as I said, we again, the details, because this is already part of a complaint system. So there's also a bit of some standards in terms of number of days there. So I'll get back to you because we need to issue those guidelines. But what I can say that everything should be under RA 1032, which is the Ease of Doing Business Act. So that should be the standard that we should all follow. But again, this particular complaints resolution system that involves everyone should be included. But we're confident. Why? Because this has to be digital. This has to be online. It has to be faster than normal. But let me just go with what your example is, because when you made your example, you hit it right on the nail, right? Because that's what the law says. When you have a complaint and you buy it through a platform, the first thing you need to go to is where you bought it from. So that's in fact what's it in the law, to allow government not to clog everything, right?
Right.
When
Well,
it gets,
I mean, that's a matter of fairness too.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that applies
Yeah.
no matter where you shop, is that the person that sold it to you
That's right.
should be given the opportunity to make it right.
Right.
And if they don't, then I'm
that's
gonna come
right,
to you.
because of course the practicality of it is that many of the Filipinos, they really go straight to government and really complain. But this law is quite specific. Number one, we're saying that all the platforms must make sure that they have a redress system. They have to make sure that there is a consumer complaints mechanism in place. So when you complain, you buy it from them, they should address it first. If they don't, or when they don't, then definitely you certainly can come to the government, to the e-commerce bureau. And the thing about it, the law also provides an online dispute resolution system. So you file your complaint to the department. We will have the online, the dispute resolution. It's online. You don't have to go to the office. And this will sort of minimize the time, hopefully make it faster. And that one is in place.
And then I'll be able to look up my complaint and see where it's.
That's correct.
Okay.
So again, I have to tell you, this is still a system development. We are now in the midst of trying it out in the Department of Trade. And once we've tried it out in the Department of Trade, it would hopefully sort of easier to connect all, the Department of Justice, the Department of Agriculture, the Bangko Sentral. So that's the greater vision.
Okay. I think Janine has a few questions, so I'll let her go.
Yusek, you've been mentioning protection for the consumer. So how about the protection for retailers, especially for the micro and small enterprises?
Thank you. I must admit that, there really is a lot about consumer protection, but really the Internet Transactions Act speaks both of consumer protection and merchant protection, because it's always about keeping our eye on the ball. And what's that? We need to build trust. We need to build trust in e-commerce in the same manner that the seller, that we are encouraging consumers to buy online. Don't worry, it's safe, you're protected, it's more reasonable, you have more choices. In the same way, we're telling the merchant, please do sell, because when you sell, there are many, many advantages. And under this law, we can, in fact, help you grow your online businesses. So first of all, let's talk about the protection aspect. So in this law, there is, in fact, we've done like a code of conduct for online consumers. I'm sure you've read or heard of this situation one time, some news that, you know, one person ordered many things all at the same time. Was it milk tea or something? They ordered a lot, and then all of a sudden, you see the last mile delivery providers in their motorcycles going to one place, and then only to find out that no one from that place ordered it. It was a bogus order. You can't do that now. We're telling everyone, the consumers, you can't do that now, especially on food or perishable items. If you order online and you've paid for it, then you must make it through, except of course when you've not paid for it and there's a little bit of an agreement with the seller, right? But if it's already on the way, and then it's already with motorcycle rider, and you're supposed to pay the motorcycle rider, you need to pay the motorcycle rider, because there are penalties attached with that if you do that. That's not a good practice. So then we also are saying to here under the law, what are the merchant protection? So of course, number one is there are certain tools, many tools in fact, that are incorporated in the law that will be for the benefit of merchants. For example, a trust mark. Okay, so we are encouraging the legitimate merchants. Of course, if you're legitimate, you'd like to have that trust mark in your site, in your website. So if you are a legitimate merchant, we will give you the trust mark. There's a provision on the trust mark, which is to be run by the private sector, but this is a partnership with the government sector. So you want that trust mark, because if you have that trust mark, consumers like me will look for that trust mark, and I will buy for those with that trust mark. So that's part of building trust. So we under the law, we're providing certain mechanisms so that merchants will likewise be protected, right? There are also other tools like the online business database, which is also good for both merchant and also good for consumers. You know, before you buy something online, and the online business database is already working, before you buy, please check it with the online business database. If it's an online business database, that means to say that that merchant that you're buying from has fulfilled all the requirements under the law relative to the permits and the licenses that it should carry. So those are, I mean, the information's there and all that. So that's a good, that's the good thing about having an online business database.
Sir, Yusek, you've mentioned the trust mark. So how would this trust mark work? Trust mark?
Yes, it's
how
a
would
trust
this
mark.
work?
Again, we're very excited. It is still work in progress, but you know, even while the law was still being deliberated on, we would study best practices from other countries. There's one that really resonated with us. This is Confianza Online. We got that from APEC before, and this is something run by the private sector. We believe that, you know, private sector is more agile than government. So this is the reason why we are, even in the law, that it will be private sector and the department who will work together to make this happen. So we are now, as I said, the law still needs a lot of regulation that we need to issue so that we can still, you know, finalize some of the details, but that is how it would work. It would be that, for instance, you are a merchant and as I said, if you are a merchant selling online, you would like to have a trust mark. You'd like to have that trust mark. Why? So that if you are, say, selling clothes, right? Then or anything, any good whatsoever, I will have to sort of compare. I'd rather buy with someone who's legit rather than without a trust mark where, I don't know, right? So again, that's part of building trust.
That made me wonder about something. Does the trust mark help to protect merchants against spurious complaints from consumers? Because that happens sometimes.
That's right.
A merchant can get their reputation ruined by getting bad ratings, from people who, one disgruntled customer, they'll tell 20.
Yeah.
So does that help you sort out, malicious complaints from consumers? And it's not quite in the same vein, but one thing that I'm really wondering about is that people may be listening to this. We have platforms like Facebook Marketplace and TikTok, I guess. I don't mess with TikTok much, but Facebook Marketplace is very accessible. You have one thing in your house that you want to get. You want to sell a piece of furniture or something like that. And you're not, by any stretch of the imagination, an online seller. You just are a person who has, something to sell once. Do consumers have to be concerned about doing that sort of thing now, and what do they need to know, in order not to run afoul of the regulations if they're just innocently selling an old TV or an old couch or something of that nature, kind of in the amateur sense, I guess.
So let me answer the first question first. You did ask about whether merchants are protected through the trust mark, assuming we know these practices about, just being mean about it and giving dishonest feedback, just maybe because you don't like the way she sounded. So the trust mark really is about making sure that that particular merchant is compliant with the regulatory or compliance requirements, right? But you also did, it reminded me of the important part again of the law, which is really the advocacy part of the law. You see, in the law, I mentioned about setting the code of conduct for online consumers, because what we want to do is to use the power, and that's why we need the help of media here, to really inform the consumers about the way they should conduct themselves in order for us to really grow e-commerce in this country. Because if they keep doing that, the sellers and the merchants, they will stop selling.
Right.
They will stop selling, and that's not what we want. So you see, we do have a code of conduct for online consumers here. And this code of conduct for online consumers, we ask the help of the retailers themselves. They who have been victimized by not so good customers. So in this case, they did say that we should make sure that we should encourage responsible feedback, to provide honest feedback. This is what the retailers are saying. So we need to put this in many places, tell consumers that you need to behave properly as well. If you really want to grow e-commerce, which we should, because it's really it's quite competitive. You get more choices, reasonable prices. And then it's more convenient, right? So we want our merchants to go into e-commerce. So I guess the answer to that question is, what we'd like to do is really to make sure that we increase the advocacy on all of this. That's one of it, especially in providing good feedback. But as I said, the penalties on the consumers really, actually, when these things happen already, like the delivery, So now let's go to the next question. I believe it's about, this is the next question. It was about
Casual sellers.
casual sellers.
Yeah.
Okay. So the thing about it, and this again is an announcement, that that this law only covers B2C and B2B.
So
C2C, which is how you described yourself, selling your loved goods, is only, that's not your business, so you're not covered under this
okay,
law.
so the law would only pertain to the platform that is hosting the C2C, transactions.
So
not the buyers and sellers themselves, but like for instance, you would be the law would be concerned with what Facebook Marketplace is doing, not all the individuals that are that are not actual businesses.
Okay, so
right?
why don't I clarify that? Okay, so all the digital platforms, they're covered, right? So even if you're Facebook, your TikTok, right, you are covered under this law, right?
Right.
So if you are a merchant selling on Facebook, you are
Right.
covered.
But if you're an
B2C.
individual selling on Facebook, then it's up to Facebook to make sure that
Okay.
you are following the rules, because Facebook has to follow the rules that the law provides,
So,
right?
so we're saying that the rules apply to both Facebook and the one selling in Facebook. Because the one selling in Facebook is called the merchant.
Right.
Facebook would be the social media platform. So I did catch you say about individual, right?
Right.
Remember that a sole proprietor is an individual, right? So say for example that you're selling cupcakes, right?
Right.
So even if you're selling cupcakes, it's already your business. You're
Right.
yeah. Then it's already a business. That's a business. Then you're covered under this law. Now, if you're only selling, say, as I said, your used clothing that or your used bag that you wanna sell it. You have an old Louis Vuitton. You do it just once in a while.
Replacing my phone.
You want to replace your phone.
Yeah.
That's right. But if you start selling your car every week,
Of course.
and
Okay.
it's the
Yeah.
same kind of car,
So people who just who just are doing that, hey, I have clutter, I'm gonna
Yeah.
have an online yard sale, so to speak. They don't have to worry that
that's correct.
that there's a bunch of new rules and
That's
things that they have
correct.
to follow.
Yes, they don't have to worry about that.
Okay.
But just as long as you are doing yours, that you are. I'm not a lawyer, so they have this term about ordinary course of business. Are you a lawyer?
No, but
they use this term about ordinary course of business. So this is what you do. It's a regular thing that you do.
Okay.
Then so as I said, if you're selling cupcake, and people buy your cupcakes all the time,
Yeah.
then you are
that
in the
would
business.
be an
That's
obvious
right.
business
That's
situation.
right. That's right.
Do you have any more
Yeah.
questions about
Trade
this?
Secretary Pascual also mentioned that the ITA would also support the creation of the e-commerce roadmap. So may we know more about the progress of the roadmap?
Oh yes, the roadmap has actually been launched already. This is really the sort of the blueprint. As I said, e-commerce. When DTI during the COVID, we were really promoting e-commerce even before COVID. But it was very difficult because the people didn't want to buy online. We were all scared. I mean, I didn't know Lazada. But when COVID came and we were all in lockdown, everybody went to e-commerce, right? So we at that time, what DTI wanted was really to promote the growth of the e-commerce sector because of the fact that simply this is really an opportunity. It's a potential for growth. And not only can we sell here, it's very easy again to do cross-border. So really we always say that the barriers of entry is much lower here. So we came out with what we call an e-commerce roadmap. The first roadmap was 2022. And we had a tagline then. The tagline then was basically the key message of that old roadmap. we said, basta e-commerce, madali. You speak? Yes. So when you say madali,
I remember that.
madali as it is, it's really like convenient, easy, right? Fast, right? So that's e-commerce. It's speedy, it's convenient, it's safe. So that was our message to everyone. Don't be afraid. You know, if e-commerce, you're secure. Yeah. But we did say madali. Basta e-commerce, madali. You know, we in government, we're all into these acronyms and all. So madali, which is easy in English, also translates to us in DTI as market access, digitalization, and logistics integration. That's ma-da-li. See? So we don't need to memorize the strategies because all we need to memorize is madali, market access. What do we mean? We need to make sure that our small, medium enterprises, they try to be onboarded these platforms. Digitalization, this is basically not digitization, digitalization, the digital transformation of small businesses. And the third one is LI, logistics integration. You know, you can order, but you cannot get the flowers on your screen, right? Or virtually. You order flowers, but you expect those flowers to reach whoever you will send those flowers to, and that's through last mile delivery. So you have the Grabs, the Food Panda, the Lala Moves, and all of that. So that's all part of the roadmap. Now we have upgraded the roadmap. We have a new roadmap. It's called the 2028 e-commerce roadmap, and we've retained. You know, we follow a certain approach. You know, we need to build up on the old roadmap. 3 years is too short a time for us to finish everything that we wanted. So we accelerate, we will continue, and we will expand the e-commerce promotion of our country under the new roadmap. So, in other words, our new tagline now is, basta e-commerce, madali, easy na, exciting pa. So why is it easy? Of course it's easy. Why is it exciting? Because under this new roadmap, our secretary, you know, has in fact really outlined the importance of innovation and inclusion. So you can see now in the roadmap that we are really leveraging on the power of the youth, the women. We need to make sure that the senior citizens and persons with disability are the vulnerable sectors. And then on the development side of it, we are very happy because we would like to engage more. Of course, we do e-commerce selling online, but there's more, no? There's more in e-commerce. We want to promote online travel. You know, when you go via Airbnb, right? So that's the Department of Tourism. Or you want to go agri-tourism. You know, we can bring you to Nueva Vizcaya and you do your picking, your orange picking there. That's agri-tourism, and you just have to book. So those are under e-commerce, and that's something that we are really looking forward to. So even online media, there's a lot of potential for our creative sector. We want to make sure that those who are creative, the ones who invent, who composes the songs, the videos, the animation, they should get paid properly. And this is again part of the e-commerce roadmap.
I think that last part is probably something that's a little bit dear to most of us in this building, given our line of work. We could probably go on and on about that, and I realize that DTI has many other projects in the works, so we're going to have you back sometime to discuss some of those other things. We have just a moment or two left. Do you have any last message for the consumers in particular? Because I think that the business sector probably understands this a little bit better than the consumer side would. So, anything that you want to leave with them before we wrap it up?
Okay, so of course what we're trying to tell the consumers is that we want an empowered consumer. you remember you have your rights. You practice those rights. So if you have a complaint now, you go, and especially it's an online it's a complaint against an online transaction that you've had. You go to the Department of Trade and Industry, call the e-commerce bureau. Sometimes people don't proceed with a complaint just because it's like a small quantity, and you'd think that, oh, it's just too much inconvenience on my part. But remember, that thing that happened to you might happen to someone else, right? So why don't you try the system? If you have a complaint, if you are a victim of any scam or any, if you're not happy with what was agreed to you, if they did not deliver what they said they would, then that is, you have a right to make a complaint. And we urge you to be proactive, empowered, and simply invoke your right as a consumer. But of course, with those rights, you also have responsibilities. Remember that, we are promoting e-commerce in this country. And as I said, the basic goal is to increase the number of people selling online and the people buying online. Because if we have both people buying and selling online, that really would, there's an economic contribution out there, plus the jobs that will be there. So if you don't contribute to the trust portion, such as you abuse the merchant, then that's not something that we're encouraging. So there are many code of conduct or requests that we would like to give the consumers. Respect for intellectual property. What we'd like is really for making sure that you're giving honest feedback. So many, and as I said, a consumer, you have a right, but you too have your responsibilities.
I'd like to thank our guest, Undersecretary Jean Pacheco of the Department of Trade and Industry, for joining us on this edition of TMT Newsroom, along with my colleague, Janine Miguel. I'm Ben Kritz. Thank you and good day.